This is Coda Radio, episode 26, for December 3rd, 2012. Hi everyone, you're listening to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Michael Dominic. Hey there, Mr. Dominic.
How are you doing, Mr. O'Reilly?
I'm pretty good. I got everybody fired. I thought today I'd try a little of the...
You stirred the pot.
The Fox News approach. I want to stir the pot, get everybody excited, get everybody riled up. You know, there's a war on Christmas. But we're not talking about that today. What are we talking about today?
As Coda Radio's Neutral Zone, we are talking about 2012, a retrospective. Now, here's the deal. So there's a lot of areas to cover, so each week that I fail to land this interview that I totally forgot to schedule, we will be covering another aspect of software development, the big trends this year.
I kind of like that idea, actually. One of the things I was thinking, this is the first place I've told anybody this. Should I not reveal this? Oh, well, okay, I'll tell you. But don't tell anybody, okay? I'm thinking next season and last, I'm going to have some of our reviews and topics span multiple episodes, because it's like sometimes, why not? We have the flexibility to really go into stuff. We don't have like corporate media deadlines where we have to package things up for ratings. Like if we want to just go in depth on a topic, let's do it.
Sorry.
I know. See, you're so excited by that. You were a little verklempt. You were a little verklempt by that.
So, and I know some people like the language-specific shows and like the library-specific shows, and those will probably be back in January. The reason for this is I think first of all, there's a lot going on. Second of all, we kind of, I don't know, I felt like the C++ show was kind of heavy. And to juxtapose it with something a bit lighter, a bit more concept-y instead of, all right, memory management, let's do it. Be a bit more fun. So should we jump into Ted's email? Now, Ted has some problems.
All right, let's do it. Oh, that's me, isn't it? Okay.
That's you.
Ted has a lot to say, actually, and he goes by an alternative name in the IRC chat room as Infinite Chaos. I believe he's with us right now. Of course, Coda Radio is live on Mondays over at jblive.tv at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, and Ted writes in, and I'm going to maybe paraphrase this just a bit because it is quite the email. He says, I had a question towards the end of last episode. The C++ is a live episode. My question pertained to an issue I have with a program that once it reaches roughly 2.5 gigabytes in its particular process, as seen from Task Manager on a Windows box. I've done research since my question, and it is in fact a problem or complete lack of usage of LAA, or Large Address Aware. Right? Do I get that right? The problem with correcting the issue myself by patching the binary, is that the version number and MD5 checksum needs to be the same to issue the program with any other user. So he goes on to say the problem persists in a couple of games out on the market, Skyrim most notably, before they patched it and released the updated binary. However, the problem also persists on programs that will use every bit of memory a system has without regard to whether or not the program will become unreliable. Most notably AutoCAD, yeah, no kidding, right? 3ds Max and in many polygons, anything that has many polygons on the screen. He kind of goes on to talk a little about his experiences with AutoCAD and things like that, but his finer point he was trying to make towards the end of the show was that we need to demand on the people who are going to use the software for a proper QA department that specifically tries to break the software, given the most robust usage with various hardware and OS setups. Even if the program is mainly scripted in Lua, which my example is when he's talking about some of the things you can do in AutoCAD, and when a programming language doesn't have issues with LAA, if there is any at all, or at least overcomes this with memory optimizations, so that LAA isn't needed. And he's asking there, is there a way to do that so that LAA isn't needed at all? Does everything have to be in the most basic level? I don't mean basic to work with reliability 100% of the time, but by reliability, I mean as intended. The problem comes in to keep reliability in the coding with a more polished look that is always the result of higher language and thus prone to aka features. And by features, he means bugs. Boy, that's hard for me to read because there's a lot there. But I think he's asking, isn't there just a different approach people could take to avoid some of these hurdles?
Yeah, so just before I jump into it, just for the people live, one of the streams isn't working. I think Chris can tell you which one is working.
Yeah, the
He
audio
would be
one
so
isn't
kind.
working today. Yeah.
Okay, so you can put up the video feed and just minimize your window if you don't like video. To be honest, that's the reason it's not a video show is I don't like video.
Well, and we normally
Yeah,
have a jblive.info AM
right.
and FM audio streams, but the streaming provider's down today.
Yeah. All right, sorry to digress. I just saw a bunch of people were confused in the buyer scene. I wanted to jump in. So Ted's issue is not really Ted's issue, in my opinion, right? He's using a third-party library that has apparently never been tested. And his point's correct, where he talks about they need to do some hardcore QA. Now, I don't think he needs to go into those crazy levels on his end that he's talking about. I think you should push back on the vendor of that library and get them to solve the problem. Because basically, I don't know if this is an open source library or is this something proprietary that you've paid for. Particularly if you've paid for this, I would be on the phone pushing really, really hard. It's, because once you get into those crazy levels of trying to optimize everything, you're just asking for problems. Another strategy would be, is this library necessary? Are there alternatives?
Mm.
And I don't know. So he's just saying in the chat that it's completely proprietary.
Mm.
And I would be all over the vendor you bought it from, or you licensed it from. If money changed hands, they have to fix it. And I would just be relentless. I mean, that's not acceptable, right? If it's leaking memory, if it's crashing in the way you describe, and if it's fairly consistent, you can't be the only person with the problem, first of all. So yeah, I mean, you're totally right about your main point that QA is always important, especially if you're selling an actual library. I would say it's even more important to QA that kind of thing where performance could be an issue, even over, say, an application or a website. But I mean, best I can say is I'm sorry, man. I would jump all over. If the problem is in the library, I would jump all over them.
Yeah, it seems like he's trying to compensate for something that he shouldn't have to be fighting.
That you just have, before you get all up on them, you should make sure it's not your fault, which it sounds like you've already done. But I would just double check that.
That's a tough situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to your finer point, gotta QA it. I mean,
you hope the people you're buying it from would QA it, but
yeah, I mean, it's kind of an extreme case, right?
Like, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of applications that I run into that are just completely irresponsible when it comes to memory management.
But you know what? I see it a lot too. People want to get that feature list as large as possible.
Yeah.
They just every time they add a feature, they add like 6 bugs. And it's just
I know that's a great idea. That's a $10 feature. Let's put it in there.
Yeah, it's just it sucks, man. It's a reality of the space, though. You need to just hold to your guns. In an ideal world, they would certainly polish everything they do, but that's not what they did, obviously. So sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
how it is, man. It's how it is. I understand.
Yeah, it's terrible. So I am aware that Minecraft is written in Java.
Oh, you are?
Thank you for everyone who emailed me that. Okay.
No, because we were kind of hard on Java last week for gaming, and you got to admit, that's a pretty successful use case scenario, although it's not the most graphically intense game.
Right. So Java is of course doable for certain types of games or any type of game. It just may not be as efficient. To that point, Brian White's in wondering why I hate Java. So in truth, I don't hate Java, right? In fact, I write a lot of Java. I'm going to write a bit of Java this week for some Android stuff. I love Java Play. If anybody's familiar, it's an MVC web framework for Java. I'm not a big fan of Java on the client, other than Android. It's less of a language-specific bias and more of I feel like it's often not the right tool for the job. And folks who've learned Java and have been doing it forever try and shoehorn it into other areas. Fair enough?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, a big movement in the Java play space is to write in Scala rather than Java. I still prefer Java. But, again, it's a right tool for the right job, right? Like I wouldn't try and write a Windows program in Objective-C, and that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, and that was another, by the way, a big point of feedback, which we might get to here in a bit. But I saw a lot of people on YouTube, especially, were taking issue with the Objective-C stuff from last week's episode.
See, I do not look at YouTube. Google is up.
Well, here, I'll go look. But I remember some people were like, "Oh, my eye just my ears bled" or something like that. There was like the typical YouTube like extreme comments that we'll get.
Wait, I can inflict harm on people by talking about Objective-C?
So,
okay, let's talk about NSRA for a moment.
Well, okay, here I pulled it up. You want me to read
Fire away.
Okay, all right.
Hear this.
So here was one of the feedback points that we got. C++ is a fine programming language in the hands of a master. So this is a comment on C++. So they're kind of saying, but C++ is maybe overkill for some people. But let's see. Objective-C is nasty. C++ is better than Objective-C in almost every way, and I prefer it. So there you go. And he says, counter hate for the win.
So he's right, and we actually have one of this week's news stories. Someone responded to the C++ resurgence. C++ is a great choice in the hands of a master, right? In the hands of your average dev, it's a shotgun pointing the wrong way.
Yeah.
So it's important. And Objective-C can be the same thing because of memory issues. Same issues that C++ has. It's just very important. We'll talk about that more in the news. But yeah, I mean, I get it. A lot of people don't like Objective-C, and I find that most people who don't like it have never written it, so that's fine. Whatever. Like I don't care. It's
what works for you, really. I mean, that's part of being a pragmatist.
It's a cleaner language than C++.
Well, you can look at it from that technical spectrum. I think that's where you're coming from. But these other people, I think they still have a valid case if they know their particular language in and out. I mean, if that's what works for them, I don't really have an issue with it.
As long as it's a reasonable space to use that language, yes.
Ah, yeah, that's true, huh?
So if you're like, for instance, if I'm trying to write a game for a platform, right, Objective-C doesn't live outside of Apple, essentially. So obviously when I'm writing Android, I'm not writing Objective-C. When I'm writing web, I'm not writing Objective-C. So it's a right tool for the right job. And so I think what's happening is there's a difference between liking a language and having that be the only tool you know how to use. Mm-hmm. And when people only know how to use one tool, they don't want to hear that another tool might be better. And that's where I think things get a little bitter. Look, a lot of Apple developers are trying to use the thing called Cappuccino, which is Objective-J, very much like Objective-C for the web. And it's a stupid idea, right? It's a bad idea. I just read in Zeit this week that someone wrote an Objective-C web framework. It's a bad idea. Because it's the wrong tool for the wrong job. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're writing a Mac application or an iOS application and you're purposely avoiding Objective-C, then I have to question what you're doing.
They got a great icon, though. I mean, that's a great on the Mac. That's like 80% right there.
Yeah, I know.
You get a great icon, and boy, you're just about there. At least Apple will probably feature you.
Actually, I get a lot of crap for that too. But
what? I like your icon a lot.
Well, yeah, some of the buttons people don't like, but that's okay. I mean, that's neither here nor there. It's just
okay.
Like I understand the tribalness with languages. Mm-hmm. I get it. But if you're going to write C++ that's going to destroy your project and leak memory, we'll save it because the writer of the article actually does a better job with the argument than I do.
Okay.
So anyway, Chris, the developer of that White Storm and Lightning gaming engine, you might want to consider a shorter name. Says, I'm missing the beauty of C++. Wow, there's so much hate right now. And his email was a bit longer, but when he says beauty, he literally means the way it looks on the page or the screen.
Aww.
That's adorable. Are you a Ruby developer as well? Because I hear that a lot from them.
Really?
Yeah.
Actually, the small bits of conversation I have had with a couple of Ruby developers, I actually do believe it was brought up how it looks.
Yeah, how it looks. So that's not something I grade on. So, okay. That's all I'm going to say. I'm glad you like it. Thank you.
Okay. hey, man, maybe it helps them read it. I have a hard time reading stuff.
To be honest, I do like my code formatted a certain way, and I get a little touchy when it's not done that way.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Bear 454 in the chat room says our Ruby project style guide includes an 80-character hard margin. Right on, Bear. I've met Bear, and I could believe that he would have a style guide.
They certainly would.
Yeah, no, I believe it. It's just he says it's just about impossible in Objective-C too. Boom! Whoop-pow! Ninja'd you from the
Here we go.
But
you know what? Just for that, we're doing an Objective-C episode. Gonna school all of you. No, it's fine. I mean, if you like the code laid out a certain way, that's totally fine. One issue I'd raise with C++, if we take 10 C++ devs, we're probably going to see 10 very different coding styles.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, sure. So, someone who actually needs help and doesn't want to troll me today. Tushar is trying to ship a HTML5 app for iOS and Android.
Oh, okay. Cool. Good
He's
for him.
trying to do this without a Mac.
It's hard to submit to the iTunes Store without... Can you submit to the iTunes Store from Windows?
No. So I have some bad news for you. The only thing I've seen that comes close to this is Adobe has a paid-for service that will package up your app and submit it to the iOS App Store. But you can have no native code in there, and so they just do a wrapper. It's part of when they bought PhoneGap, they added this. PhoneGap build. Thank you, chat room. That's the name. If, as in your email, you indicated that you did need 1 or 2 native classes coded, you need to buy a Mac. So if you can get rid of those native classes and do them in PhoneGap, and if your app is a PhoneGap app, you're fine. Otherwise, check
and I don't know.
You don't need a good Mac.
That's true. You could go eBay like a mini.
Yeah.
You really don't need horsepower to submit an app. You really don't.
Actually, one of my main boxes is a mini.
No, I don't mean to dog on the mini. Actually, the latest generation, if they dropped $100 off the mini, I would probably buy a couple for the studio because they'd make great Skype boxes because they have HDMI out. They have solid Core i7 or i5 processors. I mean, they're good little boxes, but they're they start at like $700 up.
They're pricey.
Yeah.
And just a note about PhoneGap. So last time I used the PhoneGap build service, it was free to do a test flight style debugging build to your team. To actually send it to the App Store, it is not free, and I don't know what it costs. I'm sorry. To be honest, I have no need to use PhoneGap build.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Should I not even speak the words Hackintosh? You think that's just too risky for something you want to generate revenue from?
Xcode is really picky. Even on my setup, sometimes I have to do black magic things when they update Xcode. I think a Hackintosh is going to be far more work than it's worth.
It does tend to be. As somebody who has 3 of them in production in the Jupyter Broadcasting production pipeline, I can tell you the other negative is once you establish this Hackintosh and get it working, you don't ever want to update it. I mean, you can, like technically all my Hackintoshes right now are updatable, supposedly. I've done that type.
So the problem is Xcode, so if you don't update, you can't submit.
Exactly. And see, this is, so software level, I've never actually had, even Xcode, I've never had, or Final Cut and Logic are very touchy. And I've never had them break on an update on a Hackintosh. But any OS level stuff, or even sometimes iTunes updates, will break the Hackintosh. That's only happened once, but it's happened.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you're a development shop or you're doing this as a business, a Mac Mini is expensive, but in the grand scheme of business expensive, it's probably not going to be your biggest one. So I would.
Yeah, unfortunately, you almost have to kind of. This is how I treat them: is like they're just like
they're tools.
Equipment. They're tools. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Timothy has an email that I forgot what it says.
Well, that's okay. I got it here. Do you want me to read it?
Go ahead and read
Timothy wants help getting started, Mr. Dominic. He says, "Hello, Mike and Chris, or whoever reads this. That is, I think Timothy just stressed out about that point a little too much. He says the question has little to do with the show's content itself, but I felt it would be an appropriate field to ask, as I have explored many others. I'm currently taking AP Computer Science at my high school as an online course. Well, that's really interesting. I'll admit, I went a little over my head, in part due to more programming adept friends praising its relative ease. Having friends capable of answering general questions is all well and good, but when a teacher absolutely refuses to respond on any method of communication, apart from simply placing a percentage on the assignment, a problem has obviously arisen. As my teacher, quote unquote, has effectively dedicated the function of a teacher, I guess he means he's not being a teacher. Advocate, yeah. Whatever. I am essentially left to my own devices. The language we are working with is Java, and I am a novice in this field. And I am much more comfortable working with Cisco 1900 series router than I am with an IDE upon my screen. I know that one. What methods would you recommend, Mr. Dominic, taking to learn or gain guidance in this area? Any books, video series, or online tutorial sites that would accommodate someone?
So I also took AP classes years ago when I was in high school, and my experience in all of them was that the teachers just hand you the book and expect you to take the exam. So that's anecdotal, but I had a very similar experience that my year was the year that they forced it to be Java instead of C or C++. My teacher had never heard of Java.
And the source of the Java hate is revealed.
Exactly. So I had to go buy the Java 1.2 or whatever it was manual and read that on my own.
Oh my gosh. Wow, look at you, man.
And this is a quote from my teacher at the time. It's not a real programming language anyway.
Wow. Well,
So YouTube, oh, by the way, YouTube, they're changing to real names on the Google Play Store.
I know. I did a review of an app this weekend, and
Good.
It put my picture on there and my real name.
Yeah, I think it's great. So moving right along, you're kind of screwed, but you're not alone. This happens a lot, right? So, I mean, back then I didn't really have internet access, so I just went ahead and bought the book.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably get away with just reading the docs on Oracle's site.
You think so?
Yeah.
What about, I mean, I always kind of go to this, but what about finding an open source project that's in Java and kind of rolling back what they've done?
So the problem is, if the exam is like it was when I took it, it doesn't actually train you to be a real programmer. It's more worthless theory crap.
Yeah, there's a lot in the technology field that's like that.
All masters in computer science and PhDs, please email me. Not to say that you shouldn't learn it, but you'll probably be better off reading the theory and taking the test like that and actually coding, if your goal is to just pass the test. If your goal is to actually do this. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned you like routers and that kind of thing better. First off, you should listen to TechSnap. Second off, that's a good field too.
Yeah, it is.
Like if you really struggle doing development, it doesn't hurt to look at the other side.
If you go really far into the Cisco stuff, you can make a really good living.
They do really well.
Yeah. But the problem with Cisco is you have to adopt the Cisco world. You really have to, wrap your brain into that, and you really can't dedicate yourself. I know a guy, and I don't know what they make now, but I know a guy that he went from he had a $70,000 a year job doing just local little network management stuff. He got all his Cisco certs and ended up getting a job where he's traveling around the United States. He makes $300,000 a year now. So it's quite an upgrade if you So, it's not necessarily a bad idea to focus on
It's not a bad thing, but if you learn a little bit of scripting or development, that also helps.
Yeah, I would say give it some time.
Yeah.
Push through it if you can.
I would push through. I mean, so the problem is I'd say Code School, but Code School doesn't have any Java. They're a little more trendy than that.
They're more Ruby and, things
You can try
jQuery and...
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is if you go to any Barnes & Noble or Borders, although I think they're out of business, so Barnes & Noble, there are still those old books I used to buy, right? The Java books that have then exercises in them, and you can just do them on paper or even on your computer.
Aren't there like a bunch of free college courses in iTunes?
Oh, that's true. Actually, listen to the Professor...
Yeah,
I remember his name. Marin something Persian. He's actually Persian.
I've never seen it, but I've read that there's actually some really good courses.
No, there is. It's I think it's Computer Science 102 or something, Intro to Software Development via Java. That's actually the way to go because they're free. They're in iTunes and it's hours. It's like taking the class.
There you go.
And there's little assignments and you can do the assignments. That's probably the best thing to do.
That'd be badass. So, let us know how it goes, and if you keep with it and you feel like you've you kind of come to something, email us back in coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com.
Sweet. Okay, so James from merry old England writes in. He's trying to find a group of programmers to work with. James, I have one word: GitHub. That's
There you go. GitHub will make it happen.
Yeah. Zach, the developer of one of my favorite Ubuntu apps, Dayjournal, shares that Dayjournal is written in Bing, Vala.
Oh, we talked about Vala a little bit last week.
Yes.
Dayjournal, I just saw it for, I guess it's been a few weeks back, but yeah, it was like on the front page of the Ubuntu App Store for a while.
Yes, I like that app a lot, so awesome.
Yeah, it is cool.
Now, Adam writes in with a very interesting question.
Okay.
Let's know what we think of Code Academy and things like that.
Okay, I think we've had some people have sent in Code Academy suggestions in the past.
Yeah, and I think I've either ignored them or replied privately.
So what do you think?
I don't know if it's good or bad. I treat it the same way as anyone self-taught. So it doesn't hold any more credence to me than just buying the manual and reading it and doing your own coding projects on the side. Having said that, I've also found interviewing computer science grads that degree doesn't really mean they know how to program either. So I don't count it, I guess is the way to say, from an interviewing, looking for help perspective.
Oh, as like actual credentials on someone's resume?
Yeah. But to be fair, I don't really give too much stock to the degree either, because blowing up my source control is awful.
Is it free?
It's free.
Well, there's a lot of good stuff on here for free.
Yeah, it's like any other self-teaching tool, right? It comes down to you. Now, I haven't done Code Academy. I like Code School, but it's...
Well, Code School looks like it has a little higher production. Like there's videos,
right,
and there's
and Code
gaming.
School's not free. Yeah.
But HTML Basics is on here. Some jQuery stuff is on here. Some Python stuff is on here. Python, is...
It's big right now.
Yeah. So...
I mean, I'd say go ahead and do it, but I'm not sure that I would list it on a resume or a CV or anything like that.
Yeah. But the projects you learn to work on
I would list those.
Yeah.
I would list the finished product, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, if any other, managers or anyone who has to hire is in there and actually counts Code Academy as a separate credential, I would love to hear about it and what your experience has been interviewing people who use that.
We didn't put this email in the show notes, but we got an email from this guy, and he writes into the show frequently. Okay. And he said, I know you guys talk about GitHub quite a bit. And one of the things you never mention when you're talking about GitHub is a way to work with GitHub from my desktop client. Now, this guy was a Mac user, but maybe, in a month or two, he might be a Linux user too. And he was wondering if you had a recommendation for like one of the best ways to interact with GitHub and maybe get notifications when projects get updated and things like that. Do you have any suggestions for that?
I would go with CodeJournal.
Now, CodeJournal, is this new?
This has been out for, 4 months.
Where would I find this?
At codejournalapp.com.
Oh, wow. And this would let me comment on issues right from my desktop or keep an eye on all my favorite open source projects or keep in touch with my fellow coders on GitHub?
And it has my newest favorite feature. It lets you know who broke the repo when you want to yell at someone.
You do like that.
I like that a lot.
Wow. So go check out codejournalapp.com, people. Get yourself some CodeJournal or give it to a fellow Mac user if you're not a Mac user. Dang it. It's just a damn good app.
Also, the free iOS version is out and has a fairly significant update coming out. So, Chris, I made a little mistake in the 1.0 version.
Yeah.
There was supposed to be an in-app purchase functionality that I kind of forgot to block off. But of course, it wasn't done, so it didn't really work right.
So you just banged out another binary, sent it to Apple, and boom, it's on the App Store. Digital distribution's way of the future, right?
Well, no, it waited 2 weeks and is currently in review.
Oh.
But hey, it's free. It's currently free right now.
So go get it now, folks. There you go.
Go get it now.
All right. Well, before we go on, I just want to remind folks, as the holiday season approaches, if you want to support Coder Radio and shows like Coder Radio, the whole damn Jupiter Broadcasting Network, son, I got gear to buy in that studio at the end of 2012. Let me tell you, there's one easy way to do that without even affecting your budget. Use our affiliate links down at the bottom of JupiterBroadcasting.com before you shop for Amazon or eBay or Newegg or ThinkGeek or even the Best Buy. We also have Chrome extensions and a Firefox extension. You load those things in there, you get more affiliates than we have listed, plus it automatically tags it, so you don't have to think about it. And Code School, we mentioned Code School earlier. Learn by doing with their video tutorial guides, their gaming system that helps you unlock achievements and keeps you motivated. I know it sounds silly, but it actually does keep you going because you want to get that next badge or you want to get that next achievement. Trust me, it actually works when you're motivated to do it. And you can just use those links down there and you support these shows by shopping. Now, if you have a little bit extra cash, maybe $5 or $10 a month, and you really love our content and you want to lock in funding to the Jupiter Broadcasting Network, we also have subscription links on the right-hand side of our page, or more options over at jupiterbroadcasting.com/donate, including a one-time donation.
So, Chris, you know what I've been doing?
What's that, sir?
So I need an iPad mini to test a super secret project.
Yeah, and you weren't going to get it. You were kind of poo-pooing on the mini.
Yeah, I hate it with a fiery passion. Much like the Wii U, it's overpriced.
Yeah, I agree.
But I'm waiting for Amazon to have it so I can use the JB affiliate link.
Oh, isn't that nice of you?
And that's what everybody else should do. I think Rekai wrote an extension for Chrome, right? You could just go ahead and put that in your browser, and it always uses a link for you. Because, I forget. People forget.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can pick that up on GitHub and even help him fix it.
And
although it works, so.
I should mention the GitHub extensions on there. We've had interestingly enough, a couple of churches have taken that and are modifying it for their church, and then they're
see that Jupiter Broadcasting doing the Lord's work.
Isn't that interesting though? And I'm like, he's like, and I hope you don't mind that we're kind of taking away affiliate sales. I'm like, well, those people were never probably gonna. I mean,
yeah.
And if they are, hopefully they would just use our extension, So it's that's why it's on there. So that's cool. All right, so we have a little dev hoopla we wanted to slam
just
through?
a little bit.
Okay.
So I kind of teased this, but someone wrote an article called "Why C++ is Not Back." I love this article. It's
timing
filled
is
with
good.
It's good timing, and it's actually surprisingly rational. His name is John Simones. Sorry if I can't read. Basically, he makes a lot of good points, right? You're going to shoot yourself in the foot. There are reasons that the industry has moved on to C# and Java and higher level languages. And, it's such a good article. You definitely need to read it. He goes on to talk about the skill disparity between, yes, a master, to use the YouTube commenters word, C++ programmer may be able to bleed out a little more performance, but there are so few of them.
There you go. I mean,
yeah.
This
is a must read.
The Dominic stamp of approval.
This is definitely a Dominic stamp.
And he's got great images throughout. He's got all kinds of great little clip art and stuff. And that sounds silly, but I actually like it when people do that because it kind of helps break it up a little bit and keeps it fresh. All right. Well, this is the story I've been waiting to talk about all episodes. So should we talk a little Surface Pro?
Chris's new tablet. He's returned his Nexus 7. His purchase of Surface Pro has been released. I'm sorry. It has not been released, right?
No.
The pricing?
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's brutal. It is brutal. It's the one here that we have on the stream is the pictured is $899 and $999 for the two different options.
Now this is from PC World or the Next Web, right?
Yeah, PC World. Yeah,
PC World. I guess if you need 86 architecture, go for it. Personally, I still think the RT one's more attractive if you're going to go that route.
So I'd say, we're a few weeks into the RT, and it seems like it's pretty lukewarm. Did you see that Microsoft halved their manufacturing order from 4 million to 2 million?
I heard that on Windows Weekly, but it was a rumor.
Oh, I read it. Oh, of course, it could just be a rumor where I read it. But,
right.
Yeah, I mean, what do you I don't get the sense that there's a lot of buzz and energy around the RT tablet.
Well, I don't know. A buddy of mine who works at Best Buy, the third-party ones are selling well.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, so I don't know, right? It's a very new platform. We'll have to see how it goes.
It's just at almost $1,000 before you get any accessories.
So that's the kill. So the Pro, I think, is a different matter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's two.
Yep.
I hate touchscreens. which is weird for a guy who writes software almost exclusively for touchscreens.
Well, what do you mean you hate touch screens?
Okay, so on my desk, I have a Dr. Clean bottle of specialized screen cleaning solution and three cleaning cloths for my 27-inch cinema display.
I've got a drawer full of alcohol swab.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am OCD about keeping my. I have glasses I wear to program because the light bothers me after a while.
I put those on my Christmas list.
The gamer gunner glasses.
Mm-hmm.
I use them for Xbox too. They are spotless. I will not wear them until they're immaculate. I've literally made my friend sit there waiting 20 minutes while I polish my glasses to play Halo.
Oh man.
So I have an issue with touchscreens. I don't like them. I get you can ask my fiance. I get a little annoyed if anyone touches my iPad, or my iPhone or my Nexus. I'm nuts. The idea of a touchscreen laptop makes me want to cry.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not for me.
You know, I don't want to go too far and too down in the weeds on this, but
Yeah.
I want to back up. I'm completely in synchronous. My opinion synchronizes with yours. Here's the only thing: as a father, to watch my young kids use touchscreens, it just seems so innate. But also, my 85-year-old grandfather, who had never used anything more advanced than an electronic typewriter, and that's where he peaked, was able to use the touchscreen car nav in my car. He never used anything close to a computer in his life, and was able to use that. And it really does drive home the point that there's such a range that the touch interface opens up that it almost seems like it's inevitable that it's at least going to be incorporated.
Well, touch is the future, right? I mean, we're being a bit get off my lawn here.
I think so, and it sucks because
Yeah.
I'm always like, I never wanted to be that guy that like didn't see the new trend and was all about it. But I honestly think the keyboard and mouse are a better interface in a lot of ways. In fact, I bought right here in my little hands, I have the micro USB OTG host cable adapter, so I can plug a mouse into my Nexus.
Yeah, I mean, I have Bluetooth keyboards that I hook into either my Nexus, more often my iPad.
Mm-hmm.
Just if I'm typing out a quick script or something on the road. Like, I'm OCD. But again, I think we're off the point. So the point of the story is that the information was released. Now, is it leaked or released? So that wasn't really clear to me.
I think it's not. I think it is released. I think it is actually released.
So one thing I'm noticing is that, like, is this meant to be a PC replacement?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so then the x86 makes sense, right?
Yeah,
and going
and
with
there's,
Intel
like,
makes sense.
A lot of people that don't need much for a computer. I mean, there's a lot of people that are just buying iPads. This is really to stop the iPad bleeding. That's what it is. People that want application compatibility, but also want the iPad. So they're hoping maybe you want best of both worlds. Maybe you still want to run, your 3-5-year-old Windows app, but you also want an iPad.
All right. I mean, obviously I have a conflict of interest, right? Windows 8 is a great market for me if we can deprecate all the old applications. So obviously I prefer RT. But it could be good. It could be I don't know. The problem is nobody's seen one.
Yeah,
Right,
it could be hot. It could be
So
loud.
someone told me there's going to be fans, and I think that was on Twit, that there's going to be a fan in it.
Is that real? Really?
That's again. See, the problem is none of it's official.
Well, it could be quiet. I mean, boy, this is tough to say. The other reason why I watch this with interest is because if Microsoft can make this work, it's going to open it up for a lot of different vendors and Linux vendors, hardware vendors. I mean, it really could open up, and you shouldn't discount the innate features that just come along with something that is ultra portable but yet also powerful enough as a full computer. I think the use case scenarios that are available to a device like that, we haven't even thought of yet. I mean, like, we're just seeing like iPads become cash registers. When Apple announced the iPad, I never would have said in 5 years it's going to be the number one cash register growing market in small business. I never. And you just don't know until that combination of technology comes together.
Yeah, so that's the thing also, right? So there's two issues, right? There's the Metro style, and then there's the actual product itself. And I'm hearing good reviews of that Toshiba Yoga, or whatever the hell it's called. So I I hate to use the cliche, but I feel like it's almost too big to fail. Like enough people will just get it on their machines, and will just, again, 5-year-old brother, he does not know how to use a keyboard, a touchscreen, like a pro.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm just, maybe it's just that I'm starting to think I'm not the market, like, and that's what the problem is. And maybe a lot of listeners aren't. Like all this touch stuff is just a little too scary.
And I'm scared of losing my functionality, customizability, and power. Like, there's nothing I'm doing at this moment except for switching the camera that I can do on a tablet. That is the only activity. I could run Skype, but it wouldn't sound as good, and it wouldn't be as functional, right? So for me, I literally can't do my job with these things. So yeah, it is a little scary.
Yeah, it's a different world. Although, if you really want to think back, I'm sure there were people who thought, well, personal computers will never be. The guy who ran HP thought that, right? Personal computers will never be a thing. It's all about the mainframe.
Right.
So we may be being throwbacks, and we've gone way too long on one story. So let's move along.
All right, I'm sorry. I was looking forward to talking about that one because I just am fascinated to see where that goes.
Well, the problem is it's hard to tell until you can actually touch one and like.
I know, and like I was willing to spend the money on a Nexus 7 to see if people were really, if what I was hearing was really true, and I'm not willing to spend that kind of money. But if it was quiet and had good battery life, which is not, by the way, I think they said 4-hour battery life which is pretty bad for a tablet, but it's might be doable. If I could, oh man, I don't know, man. x86 could be really cool because I could run all my regular stuff on that. Just saying.
And that's the point.
Especially if I can wipe it and reload it. Yeah, we'll see.
I don't know how possible that is, but
stay tuned and find out.
2012 in review. So we're going to take a look at the mobile development story this week, and we'll probably do web or cloud or something else next week, whatever we really feel like.
Okay.
I'm just going to really quick give my high-level impression, and Chris, you can disagree with everything I say, as is your nature. So I feel like coming into 2012, iOS was very strong. The iOS dev community was very, very strong. The Android market was in bad shape. And we're just not going to talk about the touchpad because I'm still bitter. And Windows was really not existent, right? But I feel like now that we're coming to the end, things are changing. I feel like iOS is becoming a little more risky. Like the advantage of being able to actually sell software is getting harder and harder on iOS, just like on Android. And Android's ever-increasing market share. And even from a consulting perspective, I'm getting a lot more calls for Android right now, which is really interesting. And I feel like the trend has nothing to do with the software. I feel like it has everything to do with Google putting their foot down. And that's the trend, I hope, in terms of the manufacturers and the carriers. So, Chris, if I asked you, what are the two best Android phones on the market today, what would you tell me?
Probably the Galaxy 3 and or actually maybe the Note 2. I know that's selling like crazy, and the Nexus 4. I would probably say the Samsung Note 2 and the Nexus 4.
So it's interesting. You picked a Nexus phone and a Samsung phone.
Yeah.
How come you didn't pick an HTC?
HTC's underperformed. They've underdelivered.
What about a nice Moto Blur phone?
Awful. I mean, they're okay. I shouldn't say awful. They're not awful.
So that's the other trend I've seen in
They're not
Android.
as good.
So that's the other trend I'm seeing. The Cadillac of Android is Samsung or Nexus.
Right.
And
you don't like those ones?
I like them. I'm almost tempted. I would almost like to see Google be even more controlling in terms of what they allow people to do, right? So.
Oh, you mean, well, can you clarify, like, you don't think those are up to snuff? I mean, the Note 2 is...
No, I don't think you should be able to today release a phone that's not as good as the Galaxy Nexus, period.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it is unfortunate that we see, but they're taking a PC market approach, right? That's what the PC market did forever, is right. You had different range of machines.
Right, and as someone's pointing out correctly, the Nexus 4 is an LG. That's correct, but it's also a Nexus, right?
Yeah. So Google's heavily involved with it.
Google's got very firm hand in
And
that.
if you saw the series of exclusives they gave to The Verge, they went to high production, painstaking points to point out that they were very involved with the Nexus 4's design.
So what does this all mean from a dev point of view? It's very, very simple. Fragmentation is bad, and you can spin that any way you like. Fragmentation is an issue.
Actually, I would argue it's sort of solving fragmentation. You have the Samsung Galaxy series and you have the
Right.
Nexus series. Those are really the phones where people are making money. When you break down when you take a look at the analytics of app sales, the people who are buying apps on Android are using the Cadillac Android phones, and the folks who are not buying apps are on the cheaper phones. And that seems almost cruel to say, but it also seems obvious to say. But it is the reality. And so if you want to make money, you really just got to target the Nexus and the Samsung phones for now.
So, and this is something we've had. We actually had that exact conversation. Oh wow, I think 10 weeks ago. Damn.
But I think 2012, in talking in review, that's only just come more into focus now. Looking at now that we're sitting at the end of 2012, I think that's just obvious at this point.
But one of the other trends is people in general, even Apple customers, do not buy apps. Purchasing an app is becoming more and more unlikely, right? I mean, if you look at the top trending apps on both markets, it's free to play all the way. Or it's, if it's not a game, it's microtransactions all the way. And that trend has only gotten stronger since I'd say halfway through the year. We're also seeing larger companies, they came into the Apple space this year, but now they're starting to come into the Google Play Store. Think EA, right? They brought their Spider-Man game right over for the new film.
Right, and the Charlie Brown Christmas app or Halloween app, the Charlie Brown came out for Android and iOS at the same time last year. It was iOS only.
So those types of developers exert a lot of pressure on the platform in terms of downward pricing pressure, because it's going to be very hard to charge more for your game than EA does. And also in terms of Google's going to have to meet their demands, right? And they've already kind of done it. Now they have better encryption for your app, which is good for everybody. I'm optimistic on Android. I'm a little pessimistic on iOS.
I agree that iOS is going to, has its relevancy is beginning to decline. I think, and that's just the natural path that it was going to take. I don't know if I agree with you in the sense, though. I think that where you're kind of going, that Android's starting to equal out in revenue generation. I think iOS, you still have people like people that are coming out with combinations of hardware and software for the holidays, like fitness kits, and I saw this geocaching kit that I was thinking about getting for my dad because he's an iPhone user. All of these are only iOS. There's not even an option for Android. So it seems like that's still, like, some of the first to market stuff is still happening iOS at a higher rate than, it's not balanced out yet, I'm saying.
It's certainly not balanced out, but the trend, I feel, is going to continue into Android. I mean, into 2013. Now, but I think there's a few reasons for that. And still a few problems in the Google Play Store. Discoverability in Play is still a lot worse than it is on the App Store. It's a lot harder for your app to be discovered, in general. So they could do to reorganize the store on the device and have better subsections. What's interesting is Google has really made the actual developments, the actual programming story, a lot better this year than it was previously. I mean, it's really hard to say how much they've improved because it's just night and day if you go from January to now.
Yeah, they didn't even have, at the beginning of last year, they didn't even have gift cards for the Play Store. Well, the Play Store wasn't even a thing.
Right, and I'm just talking about the actual SDK, though. I'm talking about actually coding to the API is a lot. Makes a lot more sense than it used to.
I think they're really positioned well to make money over the holiday season, though, with gift cards and with the improved. I mean, the App Store, the Play Store is improved. It is better. I think it's good. I think they're going to.
They still have a few problems, though, right?
Yeah.
I would say their weakness is the store. And I wouldn't, and everybody's going to hate this, but I wouldn't be surprised if 2013 is the year where Google starts curating the store. Maybe they don't do app review, but they start going through and actively checking instead of waiting for a complaint for copyright infringement, or more importantly, malware. So they started doing a little bit of the active malware checking already.
And they check all like the APIs it calls and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're going to see more of that in
huh.
2013 because they're going to need to continue to court the EAs and the Activisions who now have a very big iOS mobile presence of the world.
Yeah. That makes sense. And they want, yeah, you're right. They want those things.
Yeah, and I regret to say that that is all very bad news for indies. And not to get too businessy, but like Activision can afford a $50,000 loss leader for any given iOS app, right? Or any given mobile game. I can't.
Right.
So Activision's more than happy to put all this dev time, all this budget into a free game and see how it goes, and then make the money back in 2 years or a year. Indies aren't able to do that. So we're going to have to see, I think we're going to see a lot more creativity on the part of indies, particularly in the productivity space, right? So the rumors are that Microsoft's going to come out with Word, which is going to destroy a number of sections on the current App Store. And I mean, someone's asking in the chat, are the App Stores going to be ruled by giants? Well, they already are. But they're going to be ruled. So the current scheme is if you become top in a space or in a category, you're going to hold that position for a long time. And that's why people pay for 5-star reviews and things like that, because that's really how that works. And it's just the fault of the algorithm, and also the fault that no one ever gives you a 3 or 4-star review. They give you a 1 or a 5 no matter what.
Mm.
So they love it or hate it. But, so great example. Giants, the current giants, some of them are still indies, right? Like Instapaper's a giant, even though it's bleeding because of free competitors. Which is, again, another problem for indies. When you have a paid product and someone who has VC funding comes and releases the same product for free with no kind of monetization strategy, what they're doing is they're just trying to knock you out first, and then they're going to make money.
Well, and in a lot of ways, Instapaper is a feature, not a whole app. I mean, like Evernote just announced.
But when it came out, it was an app. I actually really like Instapaper. Now, if you look at a lot of its competitors, like the one I use, Pocket, it's very, very VC funded, Silicon Valley, and I mean it's very clear that the only reason it's free is to grab market share, and
right, that kind of sucks.
It's kind of a crap business.
I think it's going to get eaten away anyways, though. It's just yeah.
Right. The new problem is going to be, the VC funded companies aren't going to be the new giants. The new giants are going to be large companies.
And this happened in podcasting. When the
of course
iTunes podcasts, when iTunes added podcasting, it kind of exploded. And for the first year and a half or so, indie shows were all that was really listed in there. But now when you go in there, you see NBC, MSNBC, ESPN, all the big radio networks.
The problem is going to be that the App Store algorithms can change at any time. And I'll give you a great example. The Google Play Store, it's hard to find something that you don't already know you want to find. It's even worse on the Windows 8 App Store. Since basically you have to search for everything. There's no subcategories.
Totally right. You nailed it. I never even thought of it that way, but that's so true. And I'm playing in the Play Store right now looking for stuff, and it is not very good.
So let's use games, because games is an easy market, and we all know the big players, and most people hate them. Activision and EA will rule those top 25 or top 10, depending on which platform categories. And without any kind of better discoverabilities, that market is going to dry up. Now, there's always going to be a few successes, right? There's always going to be your Braids, I know it's a different platform, or your Super Meat Boys. There's going to be your 1 or 2 indie hopes, but the exception isn't the rule.
I would say we're almost there now.
Well, and that's right. So, Chris, do you remember the statistics? But most developers make less than $1,000 a year off of first-party apps.
I don't remember.
On apps.
That sounds about right, though.
Yeah, and that is what it is. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's only going to become more difficult.
Nope, I just bought an app.
Guilting you into purchasing things is how I roll. That's my whole business model.
I did.
Now, there is a little bit of hope, I think, for 2013. I feel like games are going to be a lost cause because it's too hot right now. But things that actually do something, so real productivity, things like Mulabu, who I know I just mispronounced, but we're supposed to have an interview with them shortly. Those kind of things, real personal assistants, real new products are going to be the place where indies have to go.
Mm-hmm.
And
things like CodeJournal.
Things like CodeJournal. And I'll give you a great example from current iOS top charts. I know the developer of Quackui, which is an excellent word game. We've worked together in the past. He did really well, right? I mean, it's a free game, and it's topping the charts, and that's awesome. And I recommend you check it out.
How does he make money?
There's an in-app purchase scheme, but it's not evil, which is, and I don't know if he hasn't shared numbers, and I don't know what they are.
Okay.
But it's a very, I would even say, I think he should be more aggressive with the in-app purchase. But there's also a game called Letterpress, which is getting a lot more press.
Mm-hmm.
Not because it's necessarily better, which I don't think it is. It's because once you have a big marketing push, the algorithm will keep you there in that top list for months.
This is an example right here of an iOS-only application.
Right.
That'll probably come. I can't imagine it's not, but it relies on Game Center.
Letterpress will, yeah, the way it's written. Also, the developer is a formal Apple employee, so I don't think it's going anywhere.
Hmm.
And actually, I've been looking into Android needs a Game Center or an Xbox Live API. Even Windows Phone has it. It's part of an Xbox Live API. It's. I mean, we're getting off the topic, but I don't know. I've been tracking what people are kind of buying and asking people what they're looking at. The Android, the problem is I showed them the Nexus, and people love it, but it is not in a store. You know, there's no chance to happen upon those type of devices. But if you walk in a mall, there's a shiny Apple store. So what does that mean for market share going forward? And I don't know. Maybe you have an answer.
The store is a huge aspect of it, and that's why Microsoft is trying to do that as well.
Right.
Now, see, the nice thing that Android has going for it is everybody who's in the mobile space is selling Android devices. So they don't. I don't. Does Google need a store presence? We'll see, maybe, but it definitely is working well for Apple. And I'll tell you, the support angle that comes with the store, it's not just about sales. People look at that and they go, well, I can drive. So let's see, if I get a Dell, I can call Dell support and they'll be out if I get a really nice contract in a minimum of 4 hours, but likely it'll be 24 hours. Or I drive it down to Apple and I drop it off and then they fix it and I pick it up tomorrow.
Right. So.
Or Microsoft, depending if you take it to the Microsoft store.
Right, and I think they do that as well. So, all right, we can't be all doom and gloom, right? We should look back on what happened this year. So one big thing was, I think 2012 is the year we can all prove that building products on someone else's platform or business is a bad plan. And I'm looking at you, Tweetro.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, Twitter is the poster child for don't trust us. I think we're going to see a lot in the future. If you want to be successful in any kind of program, it doesn't need to be a mobile app. Building off of someone else's API is going to be very, very risky. Right? Because it's kind of like the Twitter thing. Once you start making money, come chat with us and see if we're going to let you continue.
You know, while we're talking on mobile,
right.
Can I tell you that the big mobile trend that I'm sort of surprised didn't get any real traction? I mean, I didn't expect it to go huge, but I thought we'd see at least mobile payments further down the road at this point. I thought, especially at I.O., when Google really was pimping, paying with Google Wallet.
So we are, actually. So I'm seeing a lot of use of Square, but only to receive.
That's true. That's true.
Only to receive, right? So I'm using Square as a client billing because everybody's got credit cards and people don't carry checkbooks. I didn't
mean like as a cash register, because that has been huge. I meant more as like me paying for a drink by using my phone. And I'm of a very mixed opinion on that technology.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like, I really hate having stuff in my pocket. I know that's a bad basis to make important privacy
NFC has
decisions.
had some real bad press, though. There's been a number of security exploits, and I'm not sure.
Right. It's all slowed it all down. Yeah. I'm not saying it's not legit for the reasons why it hasn't proceeded, but I expected it to, for better or for worse, because of the commercial interest behind it. But it hasn't.
Well, what I expected to go forward was the mobile assistant thing. And Apple has basically killed that on iOS by using the no duplication rule. Right?
What do you mean now by mobile assist? You mean like
I mean Siri or what the
Google Now?
Moodlava. Yeah, Google Now, which is crap. Moodlava is a lot better for Android. I'm not just plugging them because they're coming on the show. It just Google Now sucks. And Google, at least for me, it never tells me anything helpful.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting left out. Let me see. I'll tell you right now. My Google Now tells me. Here's what it says. It says it's not working.
It says nothing.
Yeah, it actually says. Oh, I see. Okay, here we go. So let's see. That's interesting. I didn't know Google Now crashed, but it did. It's restarted. So okay, I will actually. You know what? It puts my package shipment notifications in Google Now. I really like that. I really do like that.
Yeah, but at this point, I expect better, right?
Yeah. Other than that, right now it's showing me the weather and my wife's calendar, which is not applicable to me.
Another area that's linked, I think, is natural language processing is going to be even bigger. But I'm just wondering. So it's obvious why Apple doesn't allow other personal assistants on iOS, right? They don't want anybody to compete with Siri. Have they done much with Siri? Because they have, but it's another one of those select partner deals, right?
Yeah.
Where Chevrolet is releasing an awesome looking new car, and so is Ford. Each of them has on the steering wheel a little Siri icon, which I'm sure works nice. I mean, I drive a Toyota, so I have no idea, and I drive an older one. But is that good for the technology in terms of it can only be used in these parameters by these select few people?
Yeah, I don't think it is because
Right.
you look at see this, for example, the reason why Google Now crashed is because I installed what's it called, Mulamba, and it replaces Google Now, and that's
Yeah,
cool.
it does.
And
Yeah.
so it had ended the Google Now process, and the ability for third parties to, as long as they don't abuse it, to swap out core functionality like that, that's going to open up markets that just aren't even optional on iOS.
So, and I've been using Mulava's API, and they have really interesting things going on there. But there's no Siri API.
So should I try it? Should I try something on here? Because this has totally replaced Google Now.
Give it a go.
What is the weather like? Nothing happened. Give me a weather report.
I can't turn my phone on without it ringing.
All right, so pulled up. It doesn't speak it though. But yeah,
It doesn't speak it. Yeah,
It pulls it up. It sounds like Siri. Or no, wait, no, it sounds like Google Now. I can't
sounds
get
like Google Now. It uses the same
Yeah.
action. Now, to be fair, their thing is they have an API for other people to use.
Oh,
So
their My Day thing is a lot nicer though.
Yeah, so their app is kind of like a. I mean, it is helpful. It's about as helpful as Siri. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah, this is nice actually.
But the real power comes into the Open API.
Yeah, so the app is called, if you guys want to check it out, it's Maluuba. I'll put a link to it in the chat room in the show notes.
And to be fair, the API, you have to tell them what you want to use it for, and they approve you. But I've actually talked to them. They're pretty, like they approve me in less than 10 seconds.
But just back to my point, it's like you couldn't even have that on iOS.
Oh, great example. I like the Sparrow email client on iOS, and I just can't have it open an email link from Safari.
Yeah, right, because but
It's
now
hard coded to be,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's hard coded, and now some developers if they choose, can implement that. They can have it open up Chrome or whatever you have on your iPad or iPhone, but you can. Apple won't do it. They don't have any interest in having you do that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it's interesting. No, I've been pretty doom and gloom. So I also think there's a few positive trends. I think that mobile devices are going to continue to infiltrate enterprise, and that's going to be a big growth market.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to be the fun little games like Angry Birds that we've been talking about. It's going to be boring business things. There's already a trend in monitoring your business processes and cloud services with your mobile device. And I think we're going to see more of that. Chris, I'm a little down right now.
I'm sorry. Well, here I'll give you some of my thoughts. Maybe we'll spark it. a thought with you. I think the iPad has continued to be in the mobile space, the sort of the Cadillac of the tablets. But Google came through with a solid Nexus alternative this year, and I'm pretty impressed. It took them a little longer than I would have liked to, but it's here now. I think looking at 2012, it seems like we're more set up now for 2013 to really be interesting than we were at the same time last year. The same time last year, it looked like Apple was just going to lap everybody another year. Whereas
So don't you feel like by the way, do you have a Nexus? Sorry to interrupt. Do you have a Nexus 4? Or not a Nexus 4, a Nexus 10?
no, I decided to go with the 7 for portability.
Okay.
Years. I'm curious to see how it works though. I don't know. I like the 7 though, other than a few quirks. I think this time last year, it looked like Apple was going to lap everybody. I think now, looking at 2013, I think we got a fair fight in our hands. Although I'm not as bullish on Microsoft. I think Microsoft has sort of failed to really move the ball forward. While they have made incredible, important changes, like fundamentally, repiped the operating system, re-UI'd the desktop operating system, restructured the whole store system, and implemented a desktop store for the first time on the Windows platform from Microsoft. That's all huge. I don't mean to downplay it, but in terms of like actual customer adoption and stuff that the end user really wants, I don't see like they've made any progress on that front. And
But does it matter? I mean, let's assume that I agree with you, which I don't. But does it matter?
Well, I definitely don't want just Google and Apple owning the mobile space.
So that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that 2013, like every other year, folks are going to go buy inexpensive PCs, and they're all going to come with Windows 8. And just by virtue of that, it's going to have a huge market share.
See, but that's kind of that you like. That's kind of like saying that's how it's going to be because that's always how it's been. But yet they've just adjusted PC sales forecasts again, trending them downwards. And
so to be fair,
that's all going to tablets.
If I were Tim Cook, I would thin the margins on Macs right now because I think there's a huge play that could be made to get market share.
Yeah, probably, huh?
Because it's and less to do with Windows 8 and more to do with Apple is still sexy to normal people. Right, nerds are starting to get bored with it, but
I wouldn't discredit the quality of the laptop hardware either. And let's be clear, that's what sells for Apple. Is the number one selling Apple device is the 13-inch MacBook Pro? They said in a press announcement,
and now they're the only people shipping Retina, which actually kind of looks amazing, even though the internet looks like crap on it. But for apps that really use it, it looks really good.
Yeah, they're not going to do that.
It's just not. Yeah, I know. It's just not gonna happen. But
they released the iPad Mini for $329. I mean, hello.
Which is a strange price for them.
They have no interest in being the low end. They don't want to be thought of as the low end. They want to be thought of as the Cadillac, the high end.
Well, they feel like they're protecting their brand, no doubt.
Their brand. Yes.
Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Well, so any other thoughts on the 2012 mobile space and any other surprises or disappointments?
I was surprised how hard WebOS failed.
Yeah, it did.
I didn't expect it to do particularly
well. And the whole open source, killing it off, reopen sourcing it.
Well, open source is another word for dead by most companies.
My big surprise was how hard Samsung pulled ahead. I mean, they are dominating the Android profit space now. And I am a fan now. I was
never a fan of Samsung until they started making these phones.
I always thought they made really cheap feeling hardware, and I was actually a big HTC fan. But HTC kind of, Samsung, it makes sense in retrospect. They have the industry reach to pull together. They have, all of the different aspects. They make the screens, they make the processors, they make the house. I mean, really, they've got it all together. Nobody's really better positioned than them. So it actually makes a lot of sense in retrospect. But I didn't really see that coming. And I thought by now, even though I realize it takes a while after big acquisitions, I thought by now that Motorola would have something a little more interesting now that they're part of Motorola Mobility is part of Google.
So they're not, right? So that's my biggest disappointment of the year. Google bought them and then put a firewall between the two companies. Why the hell would they do that? I mean, this whole movement towards appeasing your partners. I mean, I think Google could have said, you know what? No, we're taking Motorola. It's going to be on par with Samsung or better. And HTC and Nokia, because remember, Nokia did make Android phones or some other weird bad OS at one time. If you're not happy, go to Windows Phone. I mean, listen, Microsoft was able to make the Surface and Toshiba's still selling tons of those yoga books or whatever. Right? Dell is still making touch. I'm serious. Why did Google have to kind of have a soft touch in this situation?
It's got to be part of their larger strategy, I guess.
Well, I think,
or they really were just interested in the patents.
I hope that's not the truth. I hope there's some end game.
Yeah, because the thing that's weird about it, and I understand business processes take a while, and there is that firewall, but you just would expect like the latest Motorola hardware to ship with the latest Android OS, and we actually, some of the more recent stuff that came out was a rev behind, and now it's again a rev behind.
Right, and it's not that the hardware is bad; it's middling, right? It's
okay, yeah.
It's the same thing Motorola's been doing forever. It's fine, but it's not good. And
my first Android was a Droid, a Motorola Droid. And I liked it quite a bit.
The only thing I could see is that Google's afraid Samsung will start shipping a lot of Windows phones.
That's not going to happen. Why would they do that? I mean, they're just making so much money off Android.
Well, they might do it if they feel Google's putting a lot of pressure on them. That might be...
They also have their own operating system.
No one cares. I'm sorry. I know someone has been emailing me about Firefox OS, and I hate to say it, but it doesn't matter. Like, Firefox isn't... That's another 2012 shift, right? The browser space.
Mm-hmm.
Chrome has gone from to killing.
And keeping in the context of mobile, browsers have gotten better, really good on mobile now.
Really fast JavaScript. But I think that is another conversation.
And we were still... Remember how much we were bitching about Flash in 2011, and now Flash on mobile is like a non-issue?
Oh, I'm still happy it's dead. I never cared.
Yeah. Well.
I wanted Flash to go away. The same reason I want desktop support to go away in Windows.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean,
get rid of legacy, makes room for new.
You just want to break away and move ahead. I understand.
Well, it forces business. I hate to say it, but business types to open up the wallet and start investing in new projects.
Gosh, that'd be nice.
Right. Instead of trying to put bandages on their 10-year-old .NET application.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 2012. Flash is still dying. That's horrible, dude. But yeah, Flash is still around, though, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. And in some ways, it's actually, for some folks, it's actually... I mean, I still see brand new websites going up there fully Flash. So it's...
Oddly enough, Adobe's gained a lot of ground in HTML5.
What's going on? What's going on with that?
I don't know. But I think we should call it for today, and perhaps tomorrow. Next week, we'll talk about the web devs side. And then, Chris, we're going to talk about the cloud before the month is over.
All right. Well, the web dev stuff, we just kind of touched it here at the end of this one, and I think give that some thought, because that is probably going to be extremely interesting. Back, folks, if you want to share your thoughts, email in coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com. We'd love to cover your big upsets for 2012, or any surprises or disappointments that you had, and any predictions for 2013. Mr. Dominic, where can people follow you throughout the week?
They can find me at mdominic.com, at Dumanuko on Twitter, or my name at Google+.
There you go. Pretty much all those things for me. We have links to it in the show notes if you want to get our social profiles. Don't forget you can join us live on Mondays at 9 a.m., noon Eastern, at jblive.tv. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Coder Radio. See you right back here next week.